do it.
Look at that. We're live. There's no
Hello.
intro. There's
Whoa.
no intro. Yeah, we don't do it. We don't need
Needs
intros.
them. Who needs them?
I'll do one day. I feel like they just waste time and energy and effort. But I redid the background just for you. I redid the layout. I redid the email. I was inspired yesterday.
Yeah, I see it. Oh, look at all that.
Yes. Well, I actually made it purple. And it's funny because I realized purple is your color. I didn't have time to change it, but that is a fascinating color choice.
Hey, I pull the trigger purple and like a little bit of red, and then that's just always been the thing. I get made fun of for how much I use purple.
Really, I'll tell you how I knew I met my wife is because this was like 24 years ago. Is that when I first met her, she was living in a studio apartment, and she just redid it. And I went into her bathroom, and the bathroom was painted purple. And I came out, and I said, I'm like, oh, I really like the bathroom. And she, like, instantly went like, oh, like that. Because I found out later that her family gave her lots of crap because it was purple and thought it was stupid. And people
We're synced up.
So she was all excited.
Best color. Best color. I got you.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, yeah. Well, it's a hard color to use, actually. There's a lot of reasons.
But I got purple dragons all over DC20, all over the page, all over the logo, everything.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I saw that right away. I was like, oops, I should have made my background purple. So, who are you? Why are you here? You've never been here. We've gotten everyone.
That's right,
We're slowly
right.
going through the whole internet. Eventually, we'll get every person.
My name's Alan. I go by the Dungeon Coach online, and I'm the creator behind DC20, the new tabletop roleplay game. Kickstarter just launched. It's going crazy right now. It's been a whirlwind storm. So honestly, this is nice. Thanks for having me on here to be able to just like, hey, stop. Just let's hang out and chat for a bit. So it's a little nice with all the things going around. So thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. So I have a story of DC20. So my story of DC20 is...
I can't wait to hear it.
Is that I go to Gen Con last year, and for the first time, I meet Professor Dungeon Master and Baron DeRop in person. Because last year, after the OGL thing, like that was the first time I got to meet all these people. I met some people at Origins, but the rest I met at Gen Con. And then we were hanging out, and I was like, okay, what are you guys doing? It's like, oh, we're going to go play the Dungeon Coach's new game, DC20. And I was like, what's that? And they were telling me about it. I was like, oh, I want to go. He's like, oh, it's a private game. You can't go. So
hey, y'all totally could have came. We thrown down 2 more characters. We would have had a blast.
So they barred me from going.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You were banned, David. Banned.
You were the first player banned in DC20 history.
That's great. Well, there you go.
You could go on the credits as like banned for like
players.
2020.
Can't
Put me in the
Glicker.
credits. First player banned.
Yeah, I was gonna offer you to play this next Gen Con. I'll be at Gen Con,
Oh, yeah.
but apparently you're on the
definitely.
ban list. So I'm sorry, you can't. I'll ask Professor Dungeon Master and Baron DeRop, and if they clear you, then we'll talk.
I talk. Well, the professor and I talk probably every day. We chat.
Cute.
Baron, well, he and I are almost the exact same age. He lives in New Jersey. I live in New York. We have a lot in common. We grew up in the same area too. So even our you know how that is. It's like we have a lot of similarities in like even how we grew up and where we grew up. So we have a huge amount in common.
He's a cool dude.
Yeah.
I remember talking to him about DC20, and we were talking about all these different things. He's like, "Oh, that mechanic's kind of like this thing," and had pulled some TTRPG I've never heard of in my life. And, oh, that's kind of like this game. And so he just has such a breadth of knowledge of all TTRPGs. It's crazy. So
yeah, especially the old school ones. His
mainly,
knowledge is
yeah.
really good. And he hates everything except for quick combat and no lookups. He's like, everything should be one roll. Did you hit? And then everything predetermined. He likes things going super fast. So
Yeah, that checks out based on the conversations we've had.
So he likes everything done in a single roll. So something like Unknown Armies, where your attack roll also determines the damage because you add the numbers together.
No, he wants everything. He always says there shouldn't even be damage rolls. It should just be flat damage. Everything should be flat. Because he wants he wants combat to go as quickly as possible. So
yeah, I see it.
But
and that's I mean, kind of in DC20, that's the damage rolls are combined in that way. You just roll the D20 and then you have your damage and you add your modifiers. And it's been honestly, as far as feedback from players, it's the probably biggest hot topic of like, oh, you don't roll for damage. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna miss. But it's been the spiciest hot take. But then it's also been the largest feedback and most consistent feedback of actually, no, I think it was great. Like people who have played it at the table, going through it, and then coming out the other side have been like, I didn't miss rolling for damage at all. It was actually kind of cool because people think if you have a base damage, let's say your weapon has a base damage of 2. If you have a base damage of 2, that you're just going to be dealing 2 damage every turn and you're just going to fall asleep from only dealing 2 damage. But since your D20 roll, every 5 you beat the defense by adds more to it. If you have special extra class features that you're using, like a rogue's cheap shot or something like that, or barbarian's raging, or you have weapon properties you're using, you're spending action points to deal more damage, you almost never deal the same amount of damage. And then you, in the same moment, whenever you normally are like, I call it the dice collection phase of like, okay, which dice do I need to gather to roll for my damage? And as soon as you do that, then you roll the die. Well, DC20 is already done because whenever you're going through that dice collection phase, you are doing your count up the damage phase. And then you're done and you keep going instead of now roll it, now count it up. And that, yeah. So takes out some of those steps too. So.
Well,
Baron liked that part at least.
Yeah, people feel like they'd love to roll a D12 when they get a 12, but when they get a 1, they sometimes realize that maybe they would have rather had the flat damage after all.
Ooh, yeah. That's a good point.
I know it's fascinating because that is definitely a time sink when we used to play in person for so many years, and the old like roll your damage with your attack because it takes so long. You know, it is a time sink. But I am someone who's been playing online almost exclusively for like 12, 13 years at this point. Right. And I have my combat so automated to the point that I can't even play in person anymore. It definitely seems it's very slow. It's not bad. Right. There's advantages of being in front of everyone, obviously.
I can see that. I don't play online a lot. I mainly play in person, like 95+%. So that's an interest. I've never thought about that difference.
That's it. That's the only. I play in person maybe like 5-6 times a year, and that's it. And play online like 100 times a year easily. But yeah, and also I have so much scripting that I look at it, not putting anything against DC20, but one of the advantages of like say Pathfinder or games that might have a lot of rolling is I have it so automated that you press a button and it just does it all. So it's like the hybrid video game, role-playing game.
I mean, you can have automation for the steps that Dungeon Coach described as well, where you can collect the Barbarian Rage or the...
Am I raging currently? Shot. Yes. Does the target have a condition on them? Yes. Yeah. Easy. Yeah, for sure.
Now, there are a lot of advantages to, other than that people sometimes like to roll, there's a lot of advantages to static damage. One of the weaknesses is that it does mean that if you have like a certain amount of resistance or hardness or some kind of number that is reduced from damage, if you allow that number to be more than a very, very small amount, it could wind up being equal to or higher than the static damage. And so then instead of being like, well, this monster resists 3, I'm rolling immune. I'm rolling a D6, so it's 50 on average. I only don't do very much damage, but there's actually still a 50% chance I do damage. If the monster resists 3 and you do 3, then it's like, well, I have to hit by 5 or more, or I'm doing 0 every single time. I might as well have missed.
100%. Yeah. Well, and what's funny is, and like you said, you haven't read through the rules on this yet. So it's so funny that you say that problem, because that's the exact problem that I was dealing with. I remember dealing with that problem. Like, man, okay, so because the numbers also compared to 5th edition are smaller, because I also think that's a benefit as well. So you're not dealing like 20, 30 something damage, and you're like a solid hit in DC20 is like, 6, 7, 8 damage. If you hit double digits, it's like, oh, whoa, all this stuff came together. So, but how I've handled it in DC20 is, yes, there's resistances like resistance 1, 2, 3, which are going to be more rare because they are so strong. But then heavy armor and other certain class properties like monk stances or whatever have damage reduction. And damage reduction in DC20 is bypassed by heavy hits and above, which is if you beat the defense by 5. So you could have a lot of damage reduction and it's not broken, because if someone rolls 5 higher, then, it's bypassed because they get in between your armor. They hit you so hard, you get not like it bypasses that armor. And I definitely wanted to have I did this in Alcantar's Almanac I think it's a cool concept of armor being bypassed because you're able to find a weak spot, or you hit them in the head where they didn't have armor or whatever. So
yeah, it's similar to construct armor from animated objects in Pathfinder 2, where when you get your first hit by enough, you crack through it, and then it's easier to hit them later. It sort of means their AC is essentially 5 higher.
Yes, exactly.
High enough, because you actually have to hit them by 5, or else you might as well not have hit them at all.
Right. 100%. 100%.
You too.
Well, it's so funny. It's like Mark's like such a game designer, and it's like I'm like I already see where we're pretty synced up, dude. So it's cool to see that. So yeah, that's the same situation, because initially in DC20 in like 0.4, the heavy armor I had slated higher. Like I had slated like, it's way higher physical defense. Like in the light armor's less. But then every patch I'm like, no, actually they should be the same. And then the difference with heavy armor is it has damage reduction. And if you have enough of the damage reduction, it's kind of like you have 5 higher defense. Right. And then that's cool. So yeah.
All right, I'll just sit back here and you guys can talk all about it.
It's like when you're a game designer, you can analyze what problems other designers are going to run into just purely without even having to see the rest of the game, and know that they would have come up with a solution for it.
Ooh, that's how. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, you should have us play. So here's our strengths and weaknesses. Mark is very good at figuring out what works. I am amazingly good at breaking stuff. I am like the god of destroying games and breaking games. So
I definitely want you to play. I really got to talk to Professor Dungeon Master. I'll send him a text and let him clear your name. But,
yeah, we had a lot of fun at JetCat as well. It was us, Ben, Milton, and Kelsey.
Yep. I saw y'all rolling around the whole time. Yeah.
I did see you. I think I saw you once or twice.
Yeah, we were out to eat at that, whatever that restaurant was.
Oh, right. Wait, did we go to the Mexican restaurant? Were you at that one?
Yeah. Okay. Where they had that game designer from World of Warcraft there too?
John Statz, my best friend. Yes.
Yeah. That was nice to meet him. Yeah. Huge wowhead.
Okay, you were at that one. That was a huge dinner. There were so many people at that dinner, and I was all the way on the other side. Oh yeah, that's right. I couldn't remember.
There you go. But you know what, Steven, your guest that you brought was the main person that he remembered.
I know. He doesn't remember me, but he remembers John. Well,
what are you talking about? I remembered both of you. I remember you.
I'm kidding. I don't remember. I didn't remember. I got to look up
You're
the
picture. One that's
like,
wait, we met? I was like, yeah.
But you know what? I met a lot of people that day. I met a lot of people that convention. And that convention was, last year's was insane because like everyone, the last couple years have been pretty lame. 2 years ago.
That was my first one.
Oh, that was your first one? Oh. The one 2 years ago was lame because no one was there. And then 3 years ago, they didn't even have one. But last year was like the one that everyone came back to. So it was like madness. So it was it was fun. That was a good dinner. That was fun. That was Kelsey's second birthday. Oh, I got a picture here. Here we go. Let's see.
You see me?
Look at
you
that.
See me?
Yeah, you were sitting right across from us.
There you go.
I didn't even look at that. There was a picture.
Well, you're probably going to hit 5,000 backers during this stream.
Yeah, look at that. It's right. You're right across.
Every time I do a live stream, something happens. Something kicks off.
Yeah.
So,
it's a 4994. So you're probably going to hit 5,000 during this stream.
There you go. That's wild. Within the first 2 days, first day.
Only if you get 6 more bankers.
Well, no, I would love to have Steven play then, because I love people trying to purposely break it. because so far,
I didn't say I purposely break it.
well, like just push the limits of the game.
Oh, I pushed
because there's I remember at it was last Gary Con, not this year's, but the one before. And there's this player that was just like had that chaotic energy, and he was playing.
Did you go to Gary Con?
Not last year, but the year before. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I didn't this year. I was in the middle of DC20's gauntlet to push towards this and stuff.
I was going to go, and I didn't end up going. But yeah.
But there's this guy that wanted to play a wizard and use illusion spells in ways not intended. Just to try and just push the limits of the game of what illusions can do and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, man, this is so cool. And those outside the box players, but I find DC20 is so much easier to accommodate towards those outside the box ideas, because if they want to do something crazy, well, your entire action economy is 4 action points. So I don't have to like, you can do that as a bonus action, or if you spend your reaction, I'll let you hold that to be able to use your action. Like no, you want to do that? Ooh, okay, that's going to be like a 2 action point thing, and then you make a check for it. If you succeed, then there's this condition, because the conditions are pretty straightforward in DC20 of like, this condition gives you disadvantage, or there's a condition that gives a target disadvantage on stuff, and a condition that gives advantage on stuff. And so like, it's just pretty simple to just assign that, and then it just fits with a lot of situations.
So I can tell you it's going to work out well, just because that's how you do improvising actions in Pathfinder 2. And it works great compared to not using the discrete actions. You just say like, look, did they want to do something? It's probably 1 action, unless you think, man, maybe they shouldn't be able to spam this 3 times. Then it might be 2.
Right.
And is it something that should just work? If not, figure out an appropriate check and ask for the check. And that's all you need in any system like this. I'm sure that's how DC20 does it too.
So a few things. 1, do like and subscribe. Well, that YouTube jazz. And if you have a question, let us know. If you super chat, we'll answer it 100%.
I saw a few questions.
There's a few questions, but I will tell you, I will tell you, I don't purposely break the games. And if you tell me not to and behave, then I will. But
no, I'll tell you definitely,
this is how it usually goes. And when I played with both Baron Derop, when we played Mothership and I killed everyone, and we played with Derek, is that I'll say I want to do this crazy stuff, and they'll be like, okay, roll a 1d100, and if you get 100, you can do it, and then I roll 100. That's usually what happens, and people are like, "Oh, come on!" And I'm like, "Is that it?" They say it always happens. They can't believe.
So the dice are in your favor, so it's even more.
Oh, Derek couldn't even believe it. We were playing a game of Oath, and I went up against 6 of us, and 5 of them went against me. And in Oath, it's all dice, and I almost beat 5 other players because my dice were destroying everyone. They couldn't. No one believes it until they see it in action.
If you switch out your dice for other dice, do you still roll high, or is it?
No, in fact, I only roll high. So what happened is I was playing some of the Free League games where it's a roll low system, and I was getting destroyed. And in fact, I was even texting Derek and showing him pictures of my dice rolls, because I rolled something like 5 17s in a row, and he's like, "Oh, your skill is working against you." And I'm like, "Yeah, this game sucks." It's like roll under. I can't do roll under. I only roll high.
I need a different game system.
I pretty much was done with that. I was like, well, can't really play these games. Funny. I don't roll poorly. So Jonathan S said,
"Yeah, super chat. Yeah,
did you use the 4 action system just to beat Pathfinder?
Just have more."
Yeah, I'll answer this question.
We're gonna do one. It's gonna have 5 actions.
How many? Wait. How many action points does Pathfinder have? 3. Okay,
it has 3, but it has 4 counting the reaction.
Which is exactly.
And
dude,
infinite
so synced up,
if you count the free actions.
You can't count the free actions, Steven. You can have as many of those as you want.
Infinity.
So
and beyond.
And technically, actually, so I'll one up Pathfinder again. We have a minor action, so you know what I'm saying. So careful.
There you go.
I'm trying to do the
So
one.
we got 5.
Well, 5 technically. But honestly, the description, and because I see other people asking questions about where does DC20 fit on the 5e to Pathfinder spectrum, right? And Captain, who's one of the beta developers actually for DC20 on my team, I would put it at like 60% or so slanted towards Pathfinder as far as the concept, mainly just because the action points, like, and I props to Pathfinder on having an exploration mechanic. I don't know what the word is off the top of my head, but from playing it, I really loved, and it's because I had something similar for DC20 of like, while during exploring, what's your exploring action? Like, how are you exploring? I was like, like literally, like I have resting actions, exploring actions, downtime action. Like, oh man, like that's so I would slant towards Pathfinder just one notch in that way. But the biggest difference is the crunch and any sort of like the amount of rules that you have to know in that way. I try to be as light or instead of having things like this causes you to do a check whenever you climb, you have to do a check for this, or when you pull this out, there's a lot of like charges and times where you get like, picking up a weapon's action point or opening up so I tried to have it be more the focus of the field would be like epic and go for it, and you just do your thing, and it has more flexibility is I guess the biggest word there. So that kind of ties in there with the action points. Like Mark said, where Pathfinder has 3 actions and 1 reaction, but if you just kind of combine them over and it's just 4 action points, and if something triggers your reaction, you can spin them, then it kind of keeps the flexibility going. So I guess flexibility, dynamic flexibility, I guess would be the difference there. So yeah,
it seems like it has some things that are more complicated than either of the 2 game systems, because people are just trying to make a spectrum, and they act like, and even said in chat that D&D and Pathfinder are opposite ends. Really, like there's a gigantic spectrum that D&D and Pathfinder are pretty close to each other together. And it sounds like DC20 has some complexity that's beyond either of them, such as having 4 actions that you can spend so flexibly.
Right.
That's more complex because you get some really interesting and complex decisions, but certain things that have been simplified that neither of the 2 systems do. Because a lot of people like to think about 5e as being simple, just weirdly, because it is compared to like some other D&Ds, but it's really still on the rules heavy end of the spectrum. And there's a lot of simplicity that could be added beyond what 5e does. And it sounds like that you have done, for instance, simplifying the damage rolls, some of the other aspects. So it's not really in the box where it has to be on the spectrum in between. It can be beyond in certain dimensions.
Especially with TTRPGs in general, for sure.
Right,
and I see DM Layers creeping in the chat too.
Yeah, well,
he's pretending like he doesn't know what it is.
Well, you have 5,000 backers. Actually, you just have now you have $566,699. Before you had 5,666.69.
No,
I like when that happens, when you get like all the numbers
cranking out.
So often.
Yeah,
I like to take screenshots of those. I know, I'm like, oh, look at that, it's cool. Sorry, it had to go up. Now it's up to 844.
Dang it! Somebody cancel your. I'm just kidding.
Don't do it.
Please don't cancel your. Well, there was that. There's actually a whole. Now people are going crazy. Yes. Luke is like, who's this DC guy? What's he going on about?
Luke, we see you in the comments on the Kickstarter page.
Well, what's also funny is Luke's played the game more than almost anybody. Apart from my players at my table, he's played 3 times at GaryCon, at Gen Con, and in a YouTube video. So
there you go.
He's a veteran of the system at this point. And he's like, what is this DC20 all about?
So actually, someone did ask a question. I was going to ask this. So we have our new Kickstarter. I know we just finished up Dragons. And believe it or not, we're really hard at work at Dragons. And Mark and I are laying out Fairy Dragons. Is it Fairy? Yeah, Fairy Dragons.
Fairy Dragons. There's still some stretch goal stuff that I'm going to have to write after layout. But we've laid out the main text, or Steven's in the middle of it.
It's mostly done, and then we have more stuff, but the first one's the hardest one because that's going to be the template for all of them. But man, everyone knows we did Elemental. We did our annual contest last year where people get to make monsters, and then this year we have the winners. So all the monsters you see on the board right there on the display, those are all created by normal people. They just
except Shihan, who's just to the right of Dungeon Coach. That's our iconic monster hunter. She was
Shihan-
not a monster created by people.
correct. Shihan is new. We have iconics, and we have Zara, we have Kruger, we have Zahn, and now we have Shihan. And Shihan is the new monster hunter. It's bigger than in the past. We've just done archetypes. This one we have spells, we have feats. It's way bigger. It's true monster hunting. If you want to,
I mean, archetypes already have feats, but
you know
yes,
what I
we
meant,
do have
yes.
spells.
It's significantly more. And if you like want to jump on the monster and actually kill it, and like you can do it. You can do the monster hunting craziness.
Let's go.
So, and as you can
Love
see,
it.
everything of hers is made
From monster parts.
From monster parts. And we also have the monster parts system. This is probably going to be the biggest one because this is our third bestiary. This one's probably going to be bigger than Stranger
I
Than
just heard a
Usual
really
in
loud
the first
thunder.
one.
I don't know if it came through, but if I flicker off or something like that, it may be from this storm.
That's from the elemental storm.
It's the elemental storm.
But so if you go
you can
right
see
now,
if you subscribe to the newsletter, you can see we're starting a story about the Iconics exploring the elemental storm.
oh, and so every week we have a new write-up per monster. And Mark writes those. I mean, Zara writes those up every week. And
Sometimes it's a different Iconic.
it's a different iconic every week.
Sometimes.
With a different voice, because they all have their own like things. Because Zara's a blue mage, Kruger is just a brute, Zahn is an intellect, and we haven't seen Shihan's voice yet. We'll see what she's like. I think she's going to be kind of plucky and fun, and sort of like, ooh, a monster, let's go get it. I think she's.
Well,
gonna
you
be a
can see,
fun one.
Steven, I have one written by her. She's
okay.
she is very excited about fighting monsters, but she's also very meticulous, and she is very focused on monsters. So there's a situation where some of the others try to pull her into a theater to go see a play, and they get attacked by monsters, and she's like, oh, that was a better evening than I expected, because we got attacked by monsters.
So anyhow, if you go right now, just go to Kickstarter.rollforcomedy.com, and we have a new thing. We're using Launch Boom, and you see this? See this? This is the Kraken Locket, and inside this locket are 7 dice. Look at that. It comes with dice, metal dice. So you get this for $1. For $1, if you sign up and then back the Kickstarter, you get this. There's no other way to get it. It's not going to be in the Kickstarter, so if you don't sign up, you don't get it. And animated tokens, and you can see some of the animated tokens on the page. If you look there, you can see them. And we are getting really, really good at animating tokens. That's becoming our thing. People freaking love our animated tokens. So one of the questions was, as Dungeon Coach is answering them, we'll get to them in a second, how do the monsters work? Because someone asked if we can put monsters into DC20. And we do have the monsters for Pathfinder. We will have the monsters for 5e. So if it's not too much work, I might be interested in that.
Oh yeah,
you need monsters, don't you?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I'm honestly the most excited for is to see what content creators who have stuff like you guys and stuff. One of the guys at Gen Con, it makes a bunch of magic items and like Griffin Saddlebag and all these different people that have like all these magic items. Well, man, you could turn them DC20 and just it's the same piece of art, obviously, which is gorgeous. And then like, oh, this is the DC20 version of that same thing. Ba-ba! And it's just more content for everybody. The DC20 community is going to be happy. Like, yeah, so I'm 100% looking for that. And I also was answering Caldera Q's question about, Caldera Q, first of all, thank you for posting the Kickstarter. Thank y'all for spreading the word like that. But then Azazel said, converting.
Post the Kickstarter URL.
Is so for converting the second Kickstarter goal, which is already blown past, is a 5e to DC20 conversion guide. So that'll be there, and that'll span monsters, magic items, like different sort of class features and stuff like that.
Well, why don't we talk later? Because I'm not against it. I'm always up for supporting, and if there's some, if it's not too much work, I probably wouldn't do it as a book, but I can do it as a supplement or make it a stretch.
Oh, right.
You know, and
for sure, like a digital version, 100%.
Yeah. Well, we are the kings of digital because we do. We do.
Steven Glicker, king of digital.
Well, from day one.
Steven will say things like that, but I want to say this, which is that I want to say this to actually back him up this time. Sometimes I'll just be like, whatever, Steven just said these things. When Steven wanted to do an all digital, 100% digital Kickstarter for Year of Legends, like Kickstarter themselves are like, are you serious? All digital Kickstarter? What are you doing? You have to have some kind of physical product, and it worked. So he's figured something out about doing digital. So,
oh man,
I love
that's
digital.
funny.
Well, that's a whole other topic. That's that's what I do for a living. I mean, I set a Fortune 500 website, so the digital world is my realm, so I know it very well. So
we covered 2 of the 3 super chats. There was one more that says, "What are your opinions on Prime modifier?" And it's all caps.
So I think this question is for you guys because I know Peter. Peter's a patron of mine, so he knows my opinion on Prime modifier. So I can give y'all the pitch of Prime modifier, and then y'all can give your opinions on it.
Okay.
So basically, Prime modifier in DC20, there's only 4 attributes: might, agility are the 2 physical ones, and then intelligence, charisma, mental, or whatever. And those 4 attributes, you put your stats around, and you get your build, and you get your you're gonna have a 3 in one of them. 3 is the highest you can go, and you'll have a -2 or whatever your standard array roll, however you get your stats. But one of the stats is gonna be the highest, and that your Prime modifier equals your highest attribute. Right? It's just a modifier in the game that equals your highest attribute. Whatever it is, the game doesn't care. Might, agility, intelligence, whatever it is. And your Prime modifier is what drives your combat things having to do with your class, right? So swinging a sword, attack checks, shooting a bow, casting spells, attack spell checks, all that stuff. So a lot of things that are like core to your class that represent, I am good at this class. I don't care if I'm a mighty fighter that swings and puts my back into all their swings, or I'm an intelligent fighter that is carefully looking and studying my enemy's movements and stuff, or a charismatic fighter that's like their force of will and they just can't get up, can't keep pushing forward, inspiring others, whatever, right? Confidence. However, you are a fighter or an agility, quick, nimble fighter, to hit all 4 of them. Whatever it is, don't care. Your Prime is 3 because it's your highest. Who cares? And that's what you swing your sword with. That's what you do this and that with. And it also gives a thing in character design, in class design, where if a certain thing like, you can do something with your Prime, or you can add your Prime to it or whatever, it doesn't force you to barbarians have to add their might. So, or a monk, you have to have intelligence for this. So you're forced into making these choices that aren't really choices, because if you're playing this class, you should, or you have to have this higher number in this spot. So it frees up a lot of that. And that's what the Prime modifier is. So that's what Peter's asking about.
There you go. So Steven, do you have an answer first? I'll give mine afterwards, but I feel like if I give it first, you'll be like, Mark just went on a game design tangent for a while.
No, you could do yours first.
Okay. So I would say that, like, in theory, that kind of idea can open choices up, but in practice, it can be very dangerous to do that if you have other parts of the system that are not flexible on what they are based off of. Because so Steven has gremlin energy. That's how he breaks the game, and he says I find ways to make things work. Part of the way I find ways to make things work is that I will break the game myself,
right?
Not through gremlin energy, but just by building whatever the strongest thing is, and then I will see what that is, and I will fix it. Right. Like, I guess you can call me a white hat optimizer, perhaps, to use hacker analogies.
How dare you?
So, if one of those 4 stats has stuff in it that is just you can find to be better, like, someone who would go online and look through all the bestiary in, let's say, Pathfinder, and be like, I've looked it through, and of the saving throws, the one that's most dangerous to your party is will, because of the fact that if you get mind controlled, you are working for the other team. Fortitude is in the middle, since it might kill you or do something really debilitating, and reflex is the least dangerous because it's mostly damage statistically. You can take the damage usually and get healing. And so once you've done that analysis and determined, let's say I determined, I'm just picking charisma because of the fact that I like these kind of 4 stat systems. The 4 that you picked are actually very similar to an alternate ability thing I put into the game mastery guide for Pathfinder that combines strength and con and wisdom and charisma, and then makes those 4 stats.
I didn't heard of that before. That's super cool.
I'm just going to say, let's say charisma turned out to be the best one according to whatever this metric is. Then I would feel trapped into picking charisma for my fighter, for my barbarian, for my monk, for my wizard. Every time I play anything, I would get up charisma, and I wouldn't be able to put anything else up.
Yeah.
Whereas, while it is true that the barbarian being forced to use might means that you're locked into might if you choose a barbarian, the flip side to that is that deciding you wanted to play a barbarian gives you an opportunity to also be good at the things that having might makes you good at, even if you are a compulsive optimizer who knows that charisma is usually better, but you really like the things of barbarian. So interestingly enough, sometimes the restrictions can actually allow you to play a broader diversity of characters than an unrestricted system can. That's also why class-based systems, just in general, can sometimes actually give you some kinds of varieties that you wouldn't see in a point-based system, even though it's fully 100% flexible, because the point-based system might have a best option or a few best options that are must-takes. So that's sort of where I'm going with that. I obviously have not seen the system. Maybe I would look at it and be like, gosh, these 4 stats are so well balanced in how much they give that there's not one I can say is better, and I feel like they're equal, and now I really have full choice, but I'm guessing I would find one that I would just pick more or less all the time. Right.
So the 2 things that I've done to address that, and because I love that point, and I totally see what you're saying, is one, your saves, as far as the 4 saves you have. At the very beginning of the game, you get a pick to have combat mastery, which is essentially proficiency, but it scales with combat mastery. Unlike proficiency, scales with your level. It's just equal to half your level. So it's 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3.
It's 4E proficiency. D&D 4E proficiency was half your level, and 5E is roughly a third of your level-ish. But it starts at 2, and it goes up to a third of your level later on. And then Pathfinder is full level, and 4E was half level. So
there you go. I did not know the background on that.
Trust me, if people would have said you got it from 4E, depending on who your team was, like in PF2, there were some ideas I had that I hadn't even known because they were from later in 4E that I didn't look at. That people were like, it must have been the 2 team members at Paizo who worked on 4E, because 2 of them did, who put this in from 4E. I was like, actually, it wasn't. Just convergent design.
Yeah, exactly. Convergent design. I need to remember that word for sure. So the half your level thing, at first of the 4, you get to pick 2. You get picked freely, pick 2 between whatever. So let's say you just pick these 2, and then you add half your level. And then at level 5, you get another one. At level 10, you get all of them. So, and then because it's equal to half your level, a chunk of your saves is going to be protected in that way. So you having the highest charisma, or it's like close, or at least you didn't tank it, it wouldn't be as big of an impact overall. And then the second thing is, so I'll use an example for like polymorph. The save for polymorph in DC20 is might or charisma, whichever you choose, whichever's higher. Probably, you'd obviously choose the higher one. So trying to shape your body and change it into something. So charisma, being able to have that force of will to be able to stop the magical change to your body in that way. Or might, being such a large, big creature, is just hard to change it. So a lot of saves can be like 2 of these, or just a save overall. Or so there's that window kind of opens up some of those things, because that's 100% a thing we're going to have to tackle. Is, all right, we have all these monsters, we have all these spells, we have all these features. Let's take a big step back and see how they spread across that. So that's not something that has happened yet, because we still have the spell design, still have monster design to do. But that's definitely going to be a hurdle for sure.
4E also did the choose between 2 to determine your defenses as well. Now, do you mix that up? So it's like, well, this one was strength and charisma, but this one is charisma or intelligence, and this one's charisma or
agility.
Yeah, so that's different. 4E had it so that there were static pairs that were always paired up, and so that seemed like it was more flexible. But the problem was that it made it very, very punishing to play a character who wanted to be good at the 2 things that were paired up both, because since you didn't actually get any benefit from the second one. So I think your way of doing it with all possible combinations is probably a superior way to add flexibility, because it allows you to not feel bad. Like, they had dexterity and intelligence as 2 that were paired up. And
you're
I would have felt
screwed
really
because, yeah.
bad if I wanted a Dex
Right.
Int character in
Right,
4E.
right.
I've never, in fact, built a Dex Int character in 4E partially because of that. So I like that you
Well,
have it with all the pairs.
I'm glad to hear you say that too, because when the DC20 first came out, might and agility were paired together, intelligence and charisma were paired together as physical save, mental save. And that was the same thing I ran into about like, man, you're just kind of screwed. Like this, once you did one, you don't really care about the other. And then in I think 0.5 or 6, it was changed. So yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
For sure. So now, Steven, your follow-up question to Prime.
How do skill checks work?
Well,
because I'm actually more interested in the Prime with skill checks because I find that the people concentrate so much on combat, and then sometimes because of the combat, the skill checks can be felt like a leftover.
So yeah, so skill checks. There's the 4 attributes, and all the skills fit into those 4 attributes. The only exception connected with Prime is perception checks, which are just abusingly the most in 5e, and they're just the most they're so over the top, and all they're the most prevalent or whatever. Perception checks have been called awareness in DC20, so it's just a name change, but it is Prime based. So awareness checks, your perception checks are based off of your Prime. I could go into why on that, but that solves, I think, a lot of problems in, well, I have to have good perception, or my wisdom has to be high enough to be able to have, I can't tank this, or I have to choose proficiency in wisdom or proficiency or perception every single time because it's used all the time. So if it's separated away and the skill is under Prime, it's the only skill under Prime. Every other skill is spread out amongst the other 4 attributes. So but as far as skills go, they function, the skill checks go, they function the same as D&D concept wise, where when you make an athletics check, you add your might plus your athletics, and then you have your total that you add to it. The difference is your skills aren't derived by combat mastery, because skills aren't combat based. I mean, you can use skills in combat, sure, but it's based on a skill mastery, which is a 5-point system of, you put 1 point in, it's +2, +4, +6, +8, +10, and you increase it by putting actual points in there. So you get points more often to spend points in there as you progress your character and build, get more skill points as you go up. And skill points, every skill has some sort of check you can use in combat. Again, another Pathfinder similarity there. But yeah, there's things you can do with your trickery check to kind of throw off your enemy in combat. You can do things acrobatically or athletics wise, obviously. But then there's also things like insight checks to kind of check on the enemies and see what they're doing and all that kind of stuff.
I'm really unsurprised that the perception awareness turned out to be one that had to be treated differently, because we wound up with that in Pathfinder as well, where it just got taken out of the skills and just been made a core statistic for 100%. A few reasons. One of which, same reason you put it on Prime, is it's like it's such a key feature that everything needs to have that determines so much. And second, which is that, like, out of all the skills, when you think of yourself at getting better at crafting or athletics or some of these other things, it's always like you can always imagine a training montage that would work for anybody to learn about reading a book, to learn about Arcana. But like for perception, you could be like, looking around the room. Like there are probably training exercises you could do, but it's also a little weirder that if it's a skill that you are just like, that you're training in all uses of it. Investigation types, of course, but like just in terms of just like, yes, now my eyes, that I've been straining my eyes a lot and now they see better than before I did that.
Yeah, so I connected to Prime for just, you're a seasoned adventurer, like your head's on a swivel. You've been through some stuff. You've been in dangerous situations, and you're able to kind of like, wait a second, what's to look for. You're a combat veteran in some ways like that. So yeah.
So what about so wait, what level does DC20 go up to?
There's 1-to-1 levels as far as that goes in comparison to Pathfinder and D&D to 20. 1 to
it's
20.
Called DC20. Wouldn't it be weird if it didn't go up to 20?
You never know. You never know. But
the
other
one
thing
change,
is,
though, to answer your question fully, is classes are levels 1 to 10. So class design is levels 1 to 10, which I believe is cool, because if you design classes from 1 to 20, no one gets to 20. So then you're playing a class you're never going to fully be able to experience. And then how many times have people ever got their capstone for their class? Like truly. So I think it's the game design direction I went with is 1 to 10 is the class design. You get your class capstone at 8, and you still pick your subclass at 3. So you get your subclass stuff at 3, 6, 9. You get your class stuff at 1, 2, which gets you all the kit that get your class started and going. And then you get your 5, 8 class features that kind of keep progressing. So capstones happen at 8 for your class, and then you get your capstone, you're able to play with it. And at level 10, that's your class progression. And then at 11, you get to choose one of 3 prestige paths: spellcaster, hybrid, or martial. And you get either stamina points, mana points, which is unique systems for each of them, health amounts, and all that kind of stuff. You get to choose which path you take. And then you just get talents that let you be able to choose and kind of pick and customize, and almost like a skill tree type situation, where at that point you're like, all right, I'm branching out, and I can I want to go steal this from sorcerer. And then, that bard thing, I think really with the fantasy I have for this character, I think that would be cool to go take this, and you can really opens up customization at levels 11 and beyond. And then essentially you could also, just if you hit level 20 and you want to keep going, pick a prestige path again and rinse and repeat, and you can just keep going if you wanted to. But that's
I know you didn't play 4E, but in 4E, after level 10, when you hit level 11, you get a Paragon path that you get from 11 to 20. And if you want to keep going, you get an Epic Destiny at 21 through 30. So there you go. There's another similarity.
Yeah, no,
it's the kind of thing with convergent design.
Yeah. Right.
Like, there were certain things that were in Pathfinder 2 from before 5e came out in the very early stages. 5e came out very early in Pathfinder 2's alpha design cycle. There's a little bit from before 5e came out, and that people are just convinced, no matter what you say, that it came from 5e when it was converted, when it didn't, and it was even before 5e was released in a few cases. Or people are like, this is from 4e, this is from 5e, this is from this other game, and it's just the space is small enough of these fantasy games that it's inevitable that you're gonna have some similarity.
For sure. I get that a lot, because that's from this. I'm like, I've never played that. Or that's from this. Well, I've never played that. I mainly played 5th edition. I homebrewed the actual crap out of it, turned it into a living by doing it just so much. And then OGL happened, and I was like, all right, well, it's time to pull the trigger on this game I've been working on. So I just shifted everything over to the DC20 that's been made in the background for over the years. So
back to the original question, does level also go into the rules? Because that's actually the one thing I will say is my favorite. It's funny that you're like, no one plays. Our guys just hit 17th level in my Pathfinder game, and oh boy, they just took their 9th level spells. They were so happy. You just see these guys. It's one of those catch-22s. It's like you don't hit that high, but if you do, boy,
for sure,
those people are really happy.
For sure.
And then they're looking at their 10th level spell. I'm like, 10th level spell? It's like level 19, baby. You get your 10th level. But one thing that Pathfinder does, which I like, is that you automatically get added to your skills. Your skill rolls is your level, and that helps basically gate the system so that it's pretty much impossible for a level 1 character to do something against a level 20.
Well, he said half level is how it works for if you're trained in DC20.
Okay.
So it's like 4E.
But
not skills.
Right. So the two things, and this game design wise might speak to you, is there's combat mastery, which has to do with attack checks, spell checks, things having to do in combat. And then there's skill mastery and trade mastery. It works the same way. And this is half your level. Combat stuff, half your level. It's your experience as an adventurer, whatever. And then skill wise is 5 points of 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, however many points you put in. Now, those are gated and capped at certain spots that you can't just pump them up forever. But if your max level is 20 and half your level, that's 10.
Up to 10.
Well, this is also up to 10. So both systems, both mastery systems, skill versus combat, both get up to 10, and they stay even paced with each other, plus or minus 1, depending on what level you look at. And that's how that's worked. I did not want to do level for a couple of reasons. The two big ones is one, I think that just bloats the numbers to be so big, just so big on a lot of different ways. And where you're adding what numbers you add to the dice, and I'm adding plus 17 to my, and it just starts to get a lot. I wanted things to feel familiar to fifth edition as far as number wise. Setting DCs, like I really feel like I have a good pulse check on setting a DC for a random thing, and I set a DC for it. And I wanted to still have that same feel. If you played fifth edition and you've been dungeon mastering fifth edition your whole life and you play DC20 and somebody does something, you come up with a DC. I wanted it to be the same. I wanted it to be like that'd be like a DC15, you know? So there's no way I could have added level in that way. And then also I didn't want the level to water down the important choices you make. Like if your attributes are a certain thing or your skill points, which skills you want to put points into. Well, if you add your level, then it's going to diminish the amount of importance that the attribute or the other things are adding to it. So that's why I just went with half level, because if I need to, it hasn't happened yet in DC20, but if I need to have some sort of number, whether it be for monsters or a class or a number of uses of something or whatever, then I could always do level. I just haven't had to do that yet.
So I think it was inevitable with the fact that you wanted lower numbers in general, that full level is not going to work.
Yeah.
But I do want to make a quick correction to a common misconception, which people will also have about the half level that you have in here compared to some other systems that are even flatter, and that people have about adding full level. There is no amount that you can add based on level to checks if it's done universally that will water down the rest of the numbers. It might appear that way because of the fact that compared to like a 32, a 1 or a 2 doesn't seem like it's as much as compared to a 16. But if there's a baseline X that is applied across the board, X plus 2 is always 2 higher than X. So I guess what I'm saying is whether you added 20 or 10, if everybody is adding that 20 or everybody is adding that 10, a plus 2 is still equally important.
I guess I'm talking more so like health or something. So if you're level 10 and your might is 3, and you'd have a 13 health if you did exactly like you have a 13 health if you did full level. But if you did half level, it'd be 5 plus 3, which is 8. So the percentage amount that might is adding to your total health is like closer to half of your health. It's almost half your health. Whereas this one, it's like, it's like a less percent of the overall health. So might, therefore, is less impactful in that. So that's what I guess I mean by watered down.
Oh yeah, you'd be 100% correct on health, damage. If those added level in any way, then the amount you add absolutely can water down the rest. But
you're talking about
it's
like
a funny
defense,
property
armor
of
class, attack rolls. I see
any D20 property, which is what Stephen was asking about for the progression as well.
Skill checks and stuff. Yeah.
It turns out that it's weird. It's counterintuitive because it would seem like in a system where we're aiming for a 40 that you've watered down the plus 2, but when it's applied across the board, it turns out that it cancels out and that they're equally valuable. Still, though, it makes total sense for your system to be adding less so that you have smaller numbers. That's one of the strengths of the system.
Gotcha. Yep. There was another question I saw that I lost. Shoot, I want to find it because it's a good question.
Someone had a question is that if these numbers are so low, how do you have like variation in the classes? Like, do they feel different? Or
that's one of the things with like the dealing damage, like we talked about a second ago, is like there's so many different things that can add damage. You almost never deal the same amount of damage because if your weapon deals 2 damage, okay, cool. It deals 2 damage. Class features potentially add 1 damage. Action points that you're spending to empower an attack. There's a straight up power attack that you spend an action point, you deal 1 more damage. You can do that multiple times if you wanted to. So there's that. There's if you use the sword or certain weapon properties, if a creature has a condition on it, you deal more damage. Or if the creature attacked you last turn, now you can, or if you hit them last turn. So there's all these different things depending on how you build your character, whether it be by weapon choice you make as a martial, if you are you have the death bolt cantrip and you're attacking a target that's bloodied, okay, that's another damage. If you heavy hit and then there's the roll, heavy hit, brutal hit, beyond every 5 that you beat it by, there's even more. So there's plenty of variation across all the different avenues to add damage. That there's so many different times that you're adding up damage and it feels different every time. And tactical, because you can combine things in all this ways. And one of the craziest things, I played with Duke, One Shot Questers Duke, and they had this crazy combo where the Scion cast a sleep spell on a person that gave him a condition that the Rogue had a feature that gave them bonus damage if targets had that condition. And then he shot, and his friend gave him a help action to be able to do this. So he added a D8 to his roll. So he added he got like a 30 something on his roll because he added all these things from all these different stuff. And so he did like 15, rolled 15 higher than the defense plus so like those are the type of cool moments where you get those paladin crit moments where like, oh, a divine smite crit, and there's like all this like, wait a second guys, this is crazy. But the cool part about DC20 is everyone understands the crazy, and everyone's also like, oh wait, that means, and everyone understands the math, the finger counting math that's happening, instead of it being isolated on the player of gathering up all those dice and then everyone else is kind of left out. Everyone can kind of count the damage together. I can't think how many times in playtest people have been like with their hands with me. It's like, oh wait, so that means, oh yeah, don't forget about isn't he bloodied? Oh, you're raging, and everyone kind of, especially whenever you do this out loud all the time, people start to help and figure out like, oh wait, that 12 damage. Oh my god. So it's like a collaborative effort to build it all up too.
It sounds like this would be great for automation because there's a lot of small conditional things that are going on. I know you talk about playing 90% in person, but having a system like Foundry that was just like, Foundry remembers they were bloody. Foundry remembers you had that condition.
You just press the button and it would tell you the damage. Literally instantly like that.
Immediately.
That would be nuts. And then you'd see like 12. Oh my gosh. And then you could probably hold your cursor over it and be like, this, that's that, this, that, this, that. Look at all the stuff that added together to get this crazy number. That's really cool.
So someone in the super chats wondered what's the policy for third-party support. I know you said before that you're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
What is the official policy?
Orc license. It's going to be under the Orc license for sure. And all that means for anyone who doesn't know is if you can create, use the mechanics, use the rules, all the different stuff, make content, make magic items, make classes, subclasses, monsters, whatever you want. And then the only thing you have to do is just link back to be like, oh yeah, this is for DC20. Here's the link to the website and you're good. So yeah. It's going to be completely. I'm going to take it 2 steps farther in the same way. Wait, Pathfinder has 3 action points, 4 action points. So I'm in 2 ways also. All content creators have an affiliate program for all content creators where they get 10% up to 20% of all things and all commissions of traffic they generate to the website. So not only could you create a bunch of monsters for DC20 on your own, completely make it on your own. I wouldn't make any from that. You keep your money, you make your stuff. Any traffic that you generate and towards DC20, you, the creator, not me, you would make money off of the sales generated towards DC20. And I'm going to have an entire site and then on my website that shows different YouTubers making different videos on DC20, different content creators with different, like I want to have a shop in there to kind of showcase people's stuff. So, I mean, there's going to be a ton of stuff just for the community. I think it's what's best for the community. So, yeah. Yeah,
that makes sense. I think that especially when you're a new game, it's so good to have a strong third-party community. When I was working at Paizo, I always said we need more third-party creators. They are awesome. Now I have a third-party creator.
Came full circle. That's awesome. Heck yeah. And then,
so what is next? What's the schedule for DC20 at this rate?
Yeah. So now it's as soon as Kickstarter closes, however big and crazy it gets, Kickstarter will close. And then there's that window of like Kickstarter closes, and then there's like they do all the stuff behind the scenes where they have to like the backers cards and all these other things. And so a couple days later, once everything's like, okay, cool, it's fully shifted over to backer kit. In the afterwards, I send out right away the first version of the beta 0.8. Every backer will get the beta 0.8 right then, as soon as I can press the button. And that will be the beta 0.8. And then 0.9 is going to include subclasses, which is 0.8 is just going to be a couple of rule changes. I don't want to get into all that here. The Spellblade is going to be the new class that was unlocked through the stretch goals. That's going to be added in 0.8. And then 0.9 is going to be all the subclasses. bunch of subclasses for every single class, 3 subclasses for all 13 classes. Some other rule changes will be sprinkled out across the way. 0.10 is all the spells and the 3 spell lists of primal, divine, and arcane, all of that spell overhaul. And then we just keep going through that process. And then once we get through every version of the beta, they would keep sending out and keep updating. Eventually the final version of the game, boom, done. And then send it on that. And then we shift over into Monster Manual and the Game Master's Guide, but I'm not calling it Game Master's Guide. It's just basically an advanced game guide, which gives tips and tools for game masters, rule variations, all that kind of other stuff. And then after that would be the campaign setting, and then expansions, like themed expansions like Psionic expansion, which will bring in the Scion class and the Cyborn ancestry. Dragon expansions, which will bring in other things having to do with that. Elemental expansions, which gets the Elementalist class and all that stuff. An Undead expansion, which brings in the Summoner. So like there's all that is the roadmap going forward. And the bigger the Kickstarter does, the faster we go through that. So yeah.
That makes sense. Now, I want to make sure that we answer the question that was in the title, which says, can DC20 beat D&D? And so the answer is obviously not, but it doesn't have to, because that's not what the point of it.
You couldn't have answered that. We are continuously synced up, dude. Yes, that I couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah, there's no way. DC20 D&D is a titan. I never had a single intention or thought of beating D&D. There's no way, but it doesn't have to. I just think it's a cool game that's fun and epic and gives you customizable choice and all this stuff. You'll see the Kickstarter, and it's just fun to play, and you can see for yourself. It's fun for you and your group. Love it. Well said, dude.
You got to make people click. If you don't have it, something.
No, I get it. And we
evocative.
answered the question. It's not technically definitionally clickbait, I guess, as long as you do cover the topic that's in it, right?
Say there.
This is true. This is true. This is true.
Beat it? No. There's your answer. Could it try though? It's trying.
Yeah, and is D&D struggling with this, that, and the other? And it's a crazy landscape we're in right now. So, heck yeah.
Well, we have something else. Else to add to the mix. So I believe
I know y'all are going to do some news and stuff. And it's 3:00. I'll bow out. Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks for being on.
Well, we're not going anywhere, so don't
talking about it. So I'm standing by. They're staying here. Y'all don't leave. Y'all are good. But thank you guys for bringing me on, talking about this crazy time we're going through. So
good luck.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Later.
And let's see if I can switch this. Whee! Look at that.
All right. So everyone, we usually do a few news topics at the beginning, but Dungeon Coach only had an hour before he had to go do a thing. So we decided to hold off, even though there's been quite a few pieces of random mini news this week. There was a super chat right as he was leaving that said, congrats on the Kickstarter. Can't wait to review this on my collection. Is there a plan for the collection PDFs to be made into physical books? We do not know the answer to that. Unfortunately, he left right as you were putting that up on there.
Is it just PDFs or... I mean, let's see. Yeah, there's a physical book in the Kickstarter.
But they're asking if the collection PDFs will be made into physical books. I'm not sure what the collection PDFs are, so we'll have to figure that out.
Nope.
So there was a lot of news this week, though. There was at least a couple big things. What do you want to talk about first, Stephen? Do you want to talk about the demi-plane Roll20 thing?
No.
What?
So,
no?
No. I'll go through it.
Okay.
Real quick. So obviously, like and subscribe, and I can have him on more. I can have other people on. If there's specific people you're interested in having on, let me know. I will tell you that right now. Because people are like, oh, you got Dungeon Coach. I'm like, it's other people you want to have on the show. Let me know. I'll reach out to them. And it's a little easier to get people on when they specifically have a product to hawk. And Dungeon Coach, I've been talking for a while. He's always seemed busy, but now was a good time. And surprisingly, he was free because he's going kind of crazy right now. The other thing is do check out the new Kickstarter up. Well, we have a pre-sale. We're having a preview where you sign up. You get invited to a private channel where you can find out about Elemental Storm. We're gonna put some cool images in there and sketches, show you guys like what's going on with it. We'll give you a preview of the Kickstarter, and you will get this very cool dice locket It's the only way if you pre-sign up. And animated tokens, special animated tokens that won't be available anywhere else. So you got to do that. And that goes live. Someone asked when it goes live. We're looking around August. So we have a while before it goes live. But the to sign up, you just put down $1. And by the way, it's fully refundable. So if you put down $1 and then you realize whatever August comes around, you don't want the Kickstarter, you get it back. You get the $1 back, so don't worry about it. But with that, let's see. There was actually a lot of news, but I'm gonna go with the biggest one to me. Is so they unveiled wotc did the new cover for the D&D Monster Manual, and of all the covers they've done,
I like this one.
Of all the covers, this one's good. This one's really good. Like they finally the players.
It's great.
Guide.
It's got a beholder. It's got a mimic on there. It's got tentacles
Boo
from
and Minsk, and look at Boo is jumping at the beholder. It's a little Boo hamster jumping.
Miniature giant space hamster.
I know, and he's jumping at the beholder, and you see him flying in the air, and I'm like that because he's my favorite. I probably have something like 500 hours in Baldur's Gate 2. And God, it's go for the eyes, Boo, go for the eyes. Like I've heard that in my dreams. I've heard it. They have so much going on in this cover. And that beholders aren't that big, by the way. They're large size. That thing is gargantuan. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's obviously not just a basic beholder.
Right. They got a gelatinous cube in here. You have a mimic. You have a displacer beast. You have some Kraken of some sort in the background. And then if you look at the back cover is just packed with content as well. So let's see. The back cover has a lot. By the way, someone's dying in the cover, which is crazy. Let's see. What do they have? They have... the back cover is really good. They got an owlbear. You have... What else is there? Let's see. You have... Looks like a hag of some sort, and you have an intellectual devourer. It's very good. It's very good. This is an
intellect devourer. I know some people joked that it was the intellectual property devourer when the D&D movie had that one piece of art from the Pytho intellect devourer on the ad, but it is the intellect devourer.
Yes. They have a mind flayer. Owlbear, yeah, they got a lot in there. Hey, look, this is a good cover. Like this one, they finally hit it out of the park, and I'm happy. I'm happy. It looks really good. I am interested to see what it looks like, but again, it has that kind of dreamlike quality. I don't really love that, but whatever. It's just the way they're going for. That's what they're.
That's sort of the way that the art is going, and I still think it's a really, really nice cover.
So yeah, I love this one. Of all the ones, I'd say the Player's Handbook is the weakest as a cover for the book, not as art, because the full art looks great. It looks like it was cropped heavily for the book. I don't think it came out that great. The Dungeon Master's Guide is interesting, and I saw someone else's take on this, which is fascinating, is that the DM's Guide, I think, actually looks pretty good, but then the special edition DM Guide has a picture of Loth on the cover, and the number one fear, it's either the number one or number two fear in the world is spiders. And so I was like, that's fascinating, because I
thought it was public speaking was the number one.
It's up there. Oh, I said it's it's in the top 2 or 3 spiders, but it's very high up. But it doesn't matter. Why would you put a cover of a spider? That's like, if you don't want people to actually buy your book, don't do that. Like it's interesting. From a marketing point of view, they probably weren't thinking like that, or maybe they were. I'd be curious, but I probably would not have put a spider, even if it's Loth, on it, just because it's, we're not talking about it's the number 30th fear. It's like top 2. So
it's definitely at least in the top 10.
Yeah, it's very
probably high up in there too.
Yeah, so I would not have done that personally, but I look at things differently. I look at it from the marketing point of view. This one came out great. And if timing holds true, then tomorrow we'll have the special edition cover come out, by the way. So then the other big news item that, oh my God, everyone in the internet was melting down, and I have to break it to you, I didn't even bat an eye or even think this was news, that Wizards of the Coast is hiring a principal AI engineer.
All right, I'll tell you why this was news, Stephen, because you didn't think it was news, but it was news. The main reason that this was news is because just a few weeks ago, and we covered this as news on this segment, Wizards released a statement that said, we absolutely will not be using AI for the D&D or Magic the Gathering brands.
AI art.
And yes, we will not be using any AI art. Well, yes, this job description said it was art, including art, Stephen. They said we definitely won't. They said we know there have been other things up until this point. They had a great ending that I even called out as saying was well written, talking about how you can have intentions, but a company is made up of a large number of different people who are doing certain things, and you can't always know exactly what people are doing. You can have your process to try to cover for it. I thought that was an amazing updated FAQ about AI art. And now, probably not with the permission of whoever wrote that FAQ, I guess, they've put out one that says that it will be used in all areas of development, including for art.
Yeah.
Now, when Christian Hoffer and some other people have asked them, what does this mean? And they just said, oh, we haven't changed our stance from the FAQ and linked to the FAQ.
Yeah.
But it seems that they have changed it, because they said it was not going to be included art for the D&D and Magic the Gathering brand. They said, you know what? Hasbro's a big company. Hasbro stuff will do it, but this is a wotc hire.
Yes.
And I've even seen like social media from ex-wotc people that sounded like that who had been fired right in the round of firing. That sounded like they felt pretty betrayed by firing, and then like trying to replace some of that with AI is what they were feeling like was happening.
All right, so here's the thing. You guys have to stop believing what you read. That's the thing. Like,
you're saying maybe I shouldn't have believed the FAQ to begin with? The one that we reported on? You didn't say that you thought it was all made up back then. I thought that
I thought it was very well. I thought it was a great public statement, but I didn't.
It was a good public statement, but why?
I didn't say they were going to adhere to it.
Why reverse it a few weeks later? Then doesn't that make them look worse?
No, because who cares? Because every single company on planet Earth is hiring. Okay. NVIDIA is the third largest company in the world and is quickly overtaking Apple as the second largest company in the world, and very soon will be the largest company in the world of all time.
And if they hire a principal AI designer, everyone's like, yeah, of course they would.
Of course they're let me tell you.
That's because it didn't happen after NVIDIA put out a statement saying, in NVIDIA we definitely aren't going to be using AI for these designs.
This happens all the time. They have a big company, and they also said first that this was going to be for video game development. Let me tell you.
Or they said later in a follow-up that it was intended for video games. But
you know what? I wouldn't even be surprised if they put up 10 job postings for AI, because everyone has to. It's AI is here. Okay? Every meeting I'm in, and I'm talking to people in my companies and my industries, this is all we're talking about. Like, it is like that's all people are talking about is AI in everything. And I'm not talking about it in a vicious way, like coming up with new AI art. I'm talking about like ways to get rid of like stupid automation for like testing of scripts, or sending out emails, or coming up with.
Or in video games, you would always have an AI because you have an AI for the monsters.
No.
Every video game has an AI for that at the very least.
I'll tell you where they use AI. So like in AIs in video games, and they've been doing this, by the way, for 20 years. Like it's why it doesn't even surprise me. Like all those, like if you look at a video game and you see all those forests, or you see like all the terrain.
They absolutely use AI.
That's all AI generated. You think someone's sitting there and putting that down? Like the cities? Those are all generated by AI. And they have
and some games with procedurally generated maps. Procedurally generated means it was AI.
Right.
There certainly are uses for AI. There definitely are that are in certain ways. However, the problem that WotC has that makes this a little bit different is that they had Chris Cox kind of shoot off that he was going to use it. He was like, D&D has 50 years of history that we can scrape to make AI
and they're
content.
Going to.
They backed off of that with the statement that they said they weren't going to do that. And then they went back towards something that looked like they were going to do it again, and it looks inconsistent. I don't think that means that the same people who made that statement made the decision to hire the AI person. I think it was a separate part of the company. Like you were saying, there are people at the highest levels in meetings, and they make whatever decision they're going to make.
Let me tell you.
But it looks different when you made that statement. Maybe they should have just not made the statement in the first place, and maybe they wouldn't have if they had known that that someone else was about to hire a principal AI person for that.
I think, look, they're going to be hiring principal AI people. They could be doing anything. You don't know. They could be doing...
Yeah, but the job description said what they would be doing.
Oh, I know, but the point is just that doesn't mean that's what they're going to be doing. Again, everyone is believing what they're reading, and I'm like, I go by what is actually, I don't know. I go by the perception.
So if the job description says something that from reading it is actually worse in terms of the company's consistency or making it seem like they told the truth, I'm willing to believe that it's not secretly better than what they wrote, right? Because they would have tried to write it in a way that at least looked better or that was true.
I don't know.
On the posting. Why would they write a posting that looks worse for them than the reality?
So artwork is done years in advance. That's the other thing. So like they have artwork for their products all the products for all of 2024 are done. All the art for probably 2025, and including Magic of the Gathering, it's done. Okay, it's either close to done or it is done. So then they have a 2-year cycle. So at the earliest that they're going to start using AI art or art that will start using new algorithms or methods is 2026. Okay, that's just how it works. So with that in mind, they're able to put out that statement because they maybe were able to go through their art for the next 18 months and make sure none of it had AI. And then in 18 months from now, they can change their statement. You see, that's the thing. It's like, that's just corporate culture. That's how it works. I mean, none of this surprises me. I wasn't even shocked. In fact, I was like, I didn't even think it was news. I mean,
you said it wasn't news, but how is this not news? But their FAQ that you just personally said, oh, it was just a statement. It doesn't matter. They're not going to do it. Why was that news?
Is that they actually put out a statement saying that instead of them saying no to AI, is that we will attempt to not use AI, but we can't control everything. And they could, without any warning, they can come out with a statement tomorrow that literally says we are doing nothing but using AI art. There's no rule saying that they can't.
Of course there's no rule against it, but people can still feel that they've backpedaled or changed their mind, and they can say that that meant that their previous statement, that they feel that it was less trustworthy and that they're less likely to trust a future statement, right? Yeah. Like there's some degree of credibility and trust that is affected, and I don't think the people who wrote that statement knew if it's true, if any AI things were happening that was against the statement when they wrote it.
I don't know.
But it still feels less credible to people, especially people who don't think of a company as being tons of different people working together and think of them as like one hive mind. It feels less credible when you're kind of contradicting.
I guess I'm just old and cynical, because there was a time in my life, and I've mentioned it before, I'm going to mention it again, is that there was a time where I would go to a movie theater, and before the movie, you just had fun little videos and clips and fun things to watch. And then, probably I think it was in the 90s, they started to put advertising before the movies. And let me tell you, everyone went insane. This was national news. Like, they were like, how dare you put advertising before movies? We go to movies to relax. How dare you? The backlash was massive. Massive. And they stopped. They took it out because people were so angry with advertising in movies. And now, we just wait a little while. They waited a few more years, and then they started to put the ads before the movies again, and before you know, that's all they have. And so, to me, it's like, yes, they get angry the first time, so everyone's angry about the AI art. Yes, you're right. But the second time, it's just not going to happen. I've seen it 1,000 times. Where it's like everyone gets all hot and bothered about the AI art. I agree. They put out the statement. They're going to start using AI art. I guarantee it. It might not be now. It might be in 2 years. It might be 3 years. It might be 5 years. Everyone's going to be using AI art. And we talked about it. Not everyone. I think the smaller and more bespoke and like they are not going to. But I know a lot of board game companies that are using AI art, and they don't care. They're like, well, the amount of people who care is so small, and these are companies that are like selling millions, not thousands, but like millions of copies of board games. They're like, well, we don't care. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. They were saying this about animated movies too, if you remember that, animation movies and animated movies are going to take over and get rid of live action movies. And it kind of happened. I mean, the amount of animated movies that were out at one time before the pandemic, there was like half animated and half regular. I mean, it was insane, the number of animated movies. That, believe it or not, it's more expensive in the short term, but in the long term, it's not, because you don't have to worry about rights and you don't have to worry about hiring the same people. And I won't get into it, but there's a lot of reasons why people are starting to go more towards animation than having actual stars in there, because then they don't age, they don't die, they don't have political views, they don't have things they put on a TikTok or tweets or something. So they like to control everything. And I hate to say it, is that unfortunately the whole world is going that way. So again, doesn't really surprise me, or it doesn't even shock me. Maybe 20 years ago I would have been shocked. Doesn't even shock me. I wouldn't even be surprised if they said tomorrow that, oh, by the way, we're using AI in all of our products from now on, and oh well, and don't buy it if you don't want to. And I don't know. I think, yes, I agree, it's news. I'm just not even surprised. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that executives necessarily really care if other people who were beneath them put out a statement saying one thing if they decide they want to do another thing. So it's not super surprising, but I do think it's news.
Okay, no, fair enough. By the way, we did have a super chat. It says wotc owns one of the largest galleries of art. They could just train AI art just off what they own and build into D&D Beyond and not really using print. That's actually true, is that they have such a gigantic, massive library of art. And that was one of the things. So back in the days, back in the 90s, when is that Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, boy, he was smart. He was buying up Getty and all the images. He just was buying stuff. And he didn't even know what it was for. It's like, I don't even know why I want it, but I want it. I just want to own all of it, because one day this will probably be worth something. And as rich as he is, he's even richer because he bought up so much art and language and the rights to so much that now, sure enough, when they make AI art or they use AI, they're like, yeah, well, we own it. We're not using it illegally because I bought up Getty. I bought up all these art houses. It's crazy. And who also did that is Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson bought up the rights to like the Beatles. He bought up everything. He was very smart. It's like, just buying stuff up. It's like, is it going to be worth something? I don't know. And they were all right. It's crazy. Anyhow, so yes, you are correct. Is that they can just use AI art on their own stuff, their own worlds, their own writings, their own content, and they can say, hey, man, yeah, we're using AI, but we're using it ethically because we only use it on our own things. And that's actually going to be hard to argue. I mean, yes, you might not like AI, but if they do it on their own, that they completely own the rights to, they can do with whatever they want. Well, I'm going to say this is going to happen. I'm not even surprised. But there was another one. How about this? We'll switch. Paramount Plus, which again, I'm not surprised about this one, will not proceed with their D&D live action TV show. So they announced this big live action TV show last year, right around the movie, that they were going to be doing a D&D action show on Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus, by the way, is like trying to sell itself because it's doing that great.
Yeah, it's giving up more than just the D&D thing. It gave up like a Star Trek show to another streaming channel, if I recall correctly, like Star Trek Prodigy.
They don't have money. They're all these companies are doing that. By the way, my next door neighbor was in charge of Paramount Plus. He did the whole launch. So, and then he left. So I was like telling right there. I was like, why'd you leave? You were in charge of it. And so I was like, oh, okay. That could explain it. I actually like Paramount Plus. It's one of my favorites. Mark T said, AI is here to stay. It's amazingly good. AI music is amazing too. It's a tool. AI is nothing more than a tool. But the thing is, people have been using AI, whether they realize it or not, for a long time. It's just that the AI, the large language models that are being used now, are scary. It's like a whole new evolution. So,
Like, look, I studied AI when I was in college, right? When I was, that's what I left to join Paizo, was my PhD in that. So I get it. I'm just saying the difference here is specifically in the fact that they kind of just recently made a statement that's pretty different than that.
Yeah, well,
let's go to another news element. There were so many things that were happening.
There was. Now you can talk about Roll20 and Demiplane.
Yeah, so Roll20 just bought Demiplane. So wotc bought D&D Beyond, and Adam Bradford and some of the people left to form Demiplane. And then Roll20 bought Demiplane, and it looks like Adam Bradford left to go to Fantasy Grounds. So it just seems like a lot of things are getting bought up in that area. I'm not sure what that means in terms of, like, was Demiplane doing so well that Roll20 wanted to use their features for Roll20, or did they need Roll20 because they wanted to get something from Roll20 and they were having issues on their own, or what? But
it's a technology buy. It's a technology buy. It's easier for them to buy this technology where it's still pretty small and has a lot of promise than to wait 10 years. It's like, what was it? Like Yahoo offered to buy Google for like $1 billion, or Facebook offered. I forgot. It was like, like back when they were nothing, and they were like, no. And people were like, oh my God, how can you not sell for $1 billion? And now, of course, they're worth, $1 trillion. So, it's one of those, like, are they good enough now? Or are they going to become a thing? And do you want to buy them now before they get, are they just established enough where you can use it and integrate it into your existing suite of technology? Do you do it yourself, or do you wait 5 years and where the price will go up astronomically? So
that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just a business sense. And from what I know, Demiplane and D20 do very different things, and it was actually a very good fit. I actually was watching a lot of chats on this yesterday. Because Demiplane is to make characters. And there's one big issue, like, it actually is a big issue. I use Roll20 quite a bit. It's that Roll20, it's not great with character creation. It's good for certain things, but the character creation is a bear, and it's pretty tricky. It's really tricky. I have about 100 scripts that I've written in Roll20 that I use. So my character creation, I probably spent hundreds of hours writing scripts to make it pretty efficient. But like, one of the most popular modules on Foundry is there's a module that will suck up your path builder and bring it into Foundry. It's like anything that migrates data from one system to another is always at the top of the list. Like, that's always like the most popular. And you have two systems. Like, okay, one builds characters and one runs adventures, but neither does what the other one does. So combine the two and have them work seamlessly with each other, and ta-da! You suddenly make Roll20 way more interesting and way more useful, because now you have two systems and you can bring over all those people. So, it makes total sense to me. So, what else? You got anything other news, topics, information?
I think we covered most of the ones that I saw, which was still like a fairly decent chunk of different things that happened.
Well, they're big. That was the thing. We had a lot of big news this week, as opposed to lots of little small pieces of news. But actually, Fantasy Grounds hiring D&D Beyond founder, that's going to be interesting. Because Fantasy Grounds is an interesting beast. We develop for Fantasy Grounds. I do like Fantasy Grounds, but it also has some limitations, and I'll be curious to see what he can do to help facilitate that. Completely unrelated, Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be adding official mod tools. So get ready for a summer of more Baldur's Gate 3 craziness. Because it was like, once the mod tools come out, oh god. Oh god. That is it's gonna be a lot of fun. A lot of fun. But I'm trying to see anything else. Well, we got Origins in a week and a half. If anyone is gonna be in Origins, to come by, say hi, I will be there. Kelsey Dion will be there. Let's see, Derek and the whole Knights of Last Call crew will be there. There's actually going to be a fair number of people this year. I think more than last year going to Origins. Everyone's going to Gen Con, right? Aren't you going to Gen Con, Mark?
What? No,
I know you're not going
I'm
to
not.
Gen Con.
But I hope that I can go next year.
1 year, Mark will go to Gen Con.
I don't want to have a scheduling conflict
Mark's
next year.
never been to Gen Con. He can't wait. It's going to be his first one.
I've been to Gen Con a bunch of times, David.
I know. I'm just seeing if you're awake. That's all. I did also get the new Game Informer, because the Game Informer, I wanted to get this, has a whole article about D&D in it, by the way. So,
Well, you mentioned you were going to get it when you saw that it had the article.
And it came in. I bought it, and it's funny. I actually went to the GameStop, and they said, I was looking for the Game Informer, and they said, we recommend don't buy it because the magazine, I think, is like $10, and the subscription is $20. So they're like, just get a subscription. It's actually worth. The only problem is like, I got all this beautiful artwork and I'm trying to look at it, except when they printed the page, the printing was off, like it was misregistered, so everything is fuzzy. So I was like, great. I got this magazine just to see everything, and none of it looks good. It's all fuzzy. Speaking of stuff, the Eldamon book. You want the good news or you want the bad news, Mark? We got to do.
Let's take the bad news first, so that then we can feel good by ending on the good news.
I was informed by the printer that there is going to be a worldwide shipping delay for a couple of reasons. There's, because of fighting going on in the Red Sea, there's less shipping containers, and shipping containers have gone up. Pricing have gone up about 300% in the last couple of weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, and so if there's fighting in because I don't even go near the Red Sea, but like doesn't matter because there's only a finite number of shipping containers. So, if some of them get delayed, they all get delayed, and because people thought the economy was going to be weaker than it was in the United States, that they haven't been ordering as much stuff. But between the fact that it's supply and demand, it's like between the fact that there's not as many containers to go around, and the economy's actually doing way better than people expected, and no one bought nearly enough inventory, that inventory has been going up tremendously for Christmas, and which has made a run on shipping containers. Prices have gone up like 300% in just a few weeks, and suddenly there's been a big delay, and it's getting harder and harder to find shipping containers. So that means that the Eldamon books, although they were supposed to be in early July, now look like they're going to be in late July in the warehouse. So,
okay, let's hear the good news.
I will have my Eldamon book in 2 weeks.
Wait, that's not good news for anybody except you.
Well, I will show it to people if you find me at Origins or Gen Con. I'll bring it with me. And
usually when you have good news and bad news, they're good news and bad news for different people. That would be being like, it'd be like, well, the bad news is that that your house just got robbed and $1,000 are missing. The good news is I just got $1,000. I won't tell you where.
All right, from. Wait. Okay, wait. I got other good news that the Classic Creatures Foundry module 1.0 is out, or it's actually level. It's actually the 13th version. But we had a versioning error, so it actually is missing content. Right after the stream ends, I will put up the new version and we'll fix that.
Oh,
but
great.
That is done. That's actually all done. And on related news, if anyone managed to go this far, that means you really like us, which means that if you know Foundry really well, and I mean really well, and you want to help test some of our modules, and Pathfinder or 5e, doesn't matter. Either one, get in contact with me on the Discord because We have, I don't know if you know this, Mark. I think I have like 4 people working on Foundry at this time. Like, and I'm adding more.
I do know that, Steven. I'm on the channels.
I know,
where
but it used to be just the Ians, but now we got Ian and Ryan, and I got one more person. I got 4 people working on Foundry modules.
We got Bobby, Ian, Ian, and Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of people, and I might even get more because we got a lot of modules coming out. So, and we have testers, but it's getting a little crazy. So, and because the good news and bad news is D&D is adding, like, D&D, quite frankly, didn't have that much integration with Foundry, but with their new announcement, version 3 is heavily integrated as much as Pathfinder. So now we got to redo all of our modules. And, oh, by the way, Foundry version...
All the D&D ones, not all the Pathfinder ones.
Well, guess what? We got to do that because Foundry version 12 is coming out.
Well, yes, that is also true.
So it never ends. And that's the problem with software development, is that you can never stop updating your modules. Sometimes it's small, sometimes it's larger. And because we have so many modules, and that's actually the downside of Foundry. Foundry is so... It's like a Windows operating system or like an iOS. You got to keep on top of it. You can't just leave it out there. It just will stop working after a while. So, so if anyone is out there who wants to help and join the testing team at Roll for Combat, where you'll get early access, you get to chat with us, you get to hang out with the programmers, just let me know, and I will talk to you, see if you're interested in helping out. So just contact me on the Roll for Combat Discord. Other than that, I think today's a quick episode.
Well, it's because our main guest had exactly 1 hour. So
there we go.
That's how it worked. Then we spent about another 35 minutes on the side topics.
Well, then today, since we have 200 people here, like and subscribe. And let me see. What are you playing? Are you playing... We'll do Steve and Mark time. Mark, I know you're big into Hades, or Linda was very big. Are you playing Hades 2, or are you waiting for it to come out?
I'm not yet, but if I ever see it on a good sale, then we might get it, because we really like Hades 1.
It's not going to be on sale for a year.
I know, because it's new. So we'll wait. It's not even fully out yet. We can wait until they fix whatever they're going to fix in early access.
Yeah. You got a long way to go. So then what are you playing? Are you playing?
What am I playing? Well, let's see. I haven't played anything in a little bit, but I did play a Metroidvania called Haiku the Robot, but it was fast. Whoa. It was like 9 hours, and I 100%ed everything. And a kind of collectathon, almost like a point-and-click adventure, except you don't have to point-and-click. You run around using the joystick, called Witchwood, where you just kind of are brewing potions and things in order to screw over these really evil people. That one was like 6 hours, so they're just quick games that I played in between lots of work. I played another one called Tinykin that was like another short one, like 9 hours. That's like a 3D go around finding little things on the map, kind of like any of those 3D platformers where you have to collect stuff and find secrets.
That one I know. Tiny.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. So I've played all 3 of those games within the last 2 weeks because all of them are so short.
Let's see. It's the Year modules. Is the Year of Monsters module also going to update with classic creatures? I don't know what the question is.
I think it did, and it just renamed itself, is what people are saying in chat.
Oh, it just renames itself. Yeah, it just renames. It's the same module, it's just changing the name. So it's a little confusing, but there was no easy way to do it, and once it's done, it's done. So it won't affect.
What are you playing right now, Steven? Are you playing Hades 2?
Yes, I have actually. So I did something weird. So my favorite game, one of my top 5 favorite games of all time, is Red Dead Redemption. I love that game. And when Red Dead Redemption 2 came out, I was so excited. Ever have something you're too excited? And I only got halfway through it, and I'll tell you why. Because Red Dead Redemption 2 is an interesting game. Is that it's there's a lot of waiting around. It's a very slow game. Like when you put out a camp, like when you set up your camp, you literally set up the camp. They show the animation of you setting up the camp, and then they literally show you the animation of you tearing down the camp. Like everything is shown, everything. And when I first played it, I was so antsy. I was like, come on, get to it, get to it. It was like too slow for me. It was too slow. But I had an itch to play it again. I don't know why. And I started to play it again. I started over from the beginning. And, oh, God, I love this game. I think I know why, because Grand Theft Auto 6 is coming out. And I've actually played every single Rockstar game. And by the way, another one of my absolute favorite games is Bully. Like, I love Rockstar games. I think they are like second to Larian when it comes to world development and script writing. They're incredible. And sure enough, I think Grand Theft Auto 2, Red Dead Redemption 2 was ahead of its time, because it does what you see in Baldur's Gate 3. So Baldur's Gate 3 has one of those, like, whatever you do, the game seems to account for it. But in Red Dead Redemption 2, it's like you can do something really weird, and then when you go back to your camp, they comment on it. Like, I was sitting there like, wow, the amount of scripting that goes into this. To, like, no matter what you do, they seem to have a comment on it, good, bad, or otherwise. And then I realized, yeah, this game, I don't think people appreciated what they did at the time. Like, now I actually appreciate it now, because I was so into the action and the shooting and the story. And then even little things that I'll tell you, from a script point of view, like, they're the masters. So, I mean, the game's kind of old now. It came out in 2018, so a bit of a spoiler. What's it, 7 years old? So a bit of a spoiler is that there's a scene where you were just sitting down and you're relaxing, and it's a very, like, you're just fishing and you're hanging out and you're really getting into the fishing and you're talking with someone, and then right in the middle of the scene, there's a cut scene where someone evil shows up and confronts you. And I was like, that is 10 out of 10. That's 11 out of 10 masterful storytelling, because it relaxes you, it sets you up, and you're like, and then when it hits you with this person confronting you while you're fishing, and I was like, that is how you mess up with people's emotions, and that is how you hook them. And I was like, yeah, these guys are the best at what they do. They really are. And that is what I'm playing. And it is so much fun. I also figured out if I play just a little bit a night, I just play an hour or two a night, and that way I don't get too crazy. Just do a few missions. But it's strangely a very relaxing game, even though half the time you're like in gunfights killing like 50 people at a time and like running for your life. But there's a lot of just walking around. It's really good. I'm very excited. So, because you know what's coming up is that, did you play Elden Ring? Are you an Elden Ring player or not?
I did not play Elden Ring.
Oh, God, that game pretty much took over the internet until Baldur's Gate 3 came out, because that game is also fascinating. And when they're coming out with the expansion, I know, in like 2 weeks, and basically for the next like 4 to 6 months, that's all you're gonna see on YouTube is Baldur's Gate 3, because
it's probably just not for me. Like, if I was going to play a Dark Souls, I would want to play a Dark Souls probably that didn't have like George R. R. Martin stuff, because I wasn't a big fan of Song of Ice and Fire. I know a lot of people were. I wasn't.
You know what? The story is, it's like, I wouldn't even
And
worry.
you might say he didn't do much, he didn't have a big effect on it, but there are a lot of other Dark Souls that I haven't played yet.
Yeah.
And so I might as well play one of the other just regular Dark Souls.
Unfortunately, I would say this one is, it's just vastly superior. It's just so much better than, I mean, I've played the Dark Souls, I played all the Dark Souls, and this one's just, it's so superior, it's hard to go back, I'll be honest. Like, I go back to the other ones, and it's just like, they're not nearly as good. It's a no contest. Also, the weird thing about, here's the weirdest thing, there is no story. Like, I guess there's a story, but the story is so obtuse that the only way you can find out
that's what happens in all the Dark Souls,
I
as
know,
far as
but
I've
this
seen.
one, exactly. So it's like, it's not like you're playing Red Dead Redemption or Grand Theft Auto or any narrative-based game where they're telling you exactly what's happening. It's the opposite. It's like you have to go and read, Wikipedias and watch YouTubes to figure out what the hell is going on in this world. There's no story. The story is so
then I might
hard
as well,
to follow.
like, eventually finish the Dark Souls game I was playing or go back to 2 or 3, which I think I have all of them, but I haven't finished number 1 because I just kind of got bored of Dark Souls.
Yeah, I would
I was
strongly
excited when I was
try.
going the
Elden
way
Ring's
that turned
really
out to
good.
be super, super wrong and way beyond my level, which I discovered later I was not supposed to have done.
Right.
That was really exciting.
But that's part of the
once I
Dark
got past doing that
Yeah.
and went back to what I was supposed to be doing, I got very bored, and it was just big and long, and I was not as interested anymore, and I eventually stopped playing.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, that's what makes those. That is part of the game. I'll be honest. It's like you will get to those things where you just are way too strong and you kill things, but then it goes the other way around too. I would say from a game point of view, see, I look at these games I look at it from the game design, like you do. I look at it from the game design point of view, and it's so well. They do things in that game that just no one does. Like it's extremely well designed game. And so that is what I'm playing. I'm playing that. What else am I playing? Basically Red Dead Redemption 2. I restarted Zelda.
Which one?
The second one, the Eyes of the Tears of the Kingdom.
So the recent one.
Yeah, the Tears of the Kingdom.
It's not the second Zelda, but I know what you're talking about.
It's the second Switch Zelda.
Sure.
And it's like I really, 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 really I do like the game a lot, but it's like the story is they do a thing where it's an open world and then the story is around you. And I'm much more a person who likes the story really fed to you, where it's like you're just on rails. You know, it's like and looking at the difference between Red Dead and Grand Theft and the way they handle storytelling versus I'd almost say like just open world active storytelling like Horizon Zero Dawn and God of War, as opposed to passive open world storytelling like Zelda. I actually much prefer the direct storytelling way more.
So I have a different thing with that, which you may remember from us talking about this before, which is that open world games with fully free 3D, you can climb anything until your stamina runs out. You could theoretically go up any environment, anywhere, could be something hidden. Is like my bane of my play style, unless it has some kind of special compass feature that will guarantee me there's nothing there. Because when I played Breath of the Wild, I eventually realized that while there were some interesting things that happened, the amount of hours I had spent in between that, most of which I felt like I didn't accomplish much.
100%.
I was like, I spent over 20 hours before I left the first island that I started on. And most of those hours were just walking around, and nothing interesting happened during them. There were about 2 of those 20 hours, maybe 3, that were very interesting. And I get that that's me, not the game, because that's my play style, that I want to find all the things. I want to find the hidden secrets. And so I've played other very similar games that have a special feature where if you go on a high place, you can kind of look around, and when you do, like a Farsight feature will like make points of interest where the things that you theoretically could have spotted if your vision was good,
right,
that your character saw are on the map. And so you can be very confident that if it didn't pop up, you didn't miss anything. You don't have to climb to the bottom of every little chasm, to the top of everything that turns out to just be another rock, but it took you 5 minutes to get up there.
I 100% agree with you, because that is exactly why I kind of stopped again, because I felt like I was spending hours and I'm literally just opening up the map and not really doing anything. You know, I don't feel like I'm making any progression. And the difference is like in Red Dead, because you could do the same thing, but you could be hunting animals, you can be getting skins, you could be talking to people. Like there's always something to do that moves you forward and it moves the story forward. And I feel that the difference is, for me, I prefer the second one. I will say, so Ragnarok is coming to PC, and you know how much I love God of War. And God of War Ragnarok, you should definitely play, because the story and the subtleness of the story, it's actually so subtle and so well done. Unless you really watch, there's a lot of people do videos after explaining, And it's like they're also masters. Like their storytelling in that game is incredible.
It sounds like there's a lot of storytelling and characterization of the character of Kratos and his story in that series. So if I start it, I want to start from the very first one they ever made, so I can appreciate not just the one where they rebooted it as God of War, but the very first one, because I want to be able to appreciate his story.
Well, let me rephrase
from
that.
all of the way back at the beginning of the story.
Well, then you'll never get done because there's like 20 games. But
yeah, I know. That's why I'll never get to Ragnarok.
But you don't. That's a self-imposed thing on you. First of all, okay, this is what I recommend.
But if it's got that good of a story, I don't want to have missed 18 stories worth of story.
No, but the story, it doesn't. Okay, I agree with you. This is what I would recommend. There's God of War 1, 2, and 3. God of War 1 is all you need to play. Because all that happens is God of War 1 is you are angry at your father Zeus and you want to go kill him. That is God of War 1. God of War 2 is, okay, and now I am angry at all the gods. I will kill them all. I believe that was God. I can't remember the exact. God of War 3 is like, now I'm, okay, the gods are dead. Now I'm going to kill the titans. Like, whatever is next on the list, he just kills the next level. That's it. That's all it is. So really, God of War 2 and God of War 3, it didn't matter. Like, it sort of was like they were recycling. First of all, nothing in God of War 2 and God of War 3 or any of the ones after are in God of War, the reboot, God of War 2018. You do not need to play those. There's nothing in those. God of War 1...
And you said there were 20. What are the other 15?
No, there was like all these, like, there was one like for the PSP. There was a lot of little ones that were just like one-offs, just like little adventure ones.
Okay, those I can skip, but I should probably do 1, 2, and 3.
Nah, God of War 2 and 3... First of all, God of War 3 is boring. It's actually quite boring. God of War 2 is pretty good. I'll give you God of War 2 is really good. By the way, God of War 1 you can finish in like 9 hours. And it's excellent. Okay, it's a very, very good game. I would strongly recommend if you're going to play any, because God of War 1 explores him and Zeus and his whole upbringing. That one is important. God of War 2 and 3 doesn't matter. You can watch, or you do what I do, is that if you go to, Gamer's Little... I forgot the name of it. There's a website, Gamer's Little Playground. They will put together videos. You can either watch as movies with just the cutscenes or movies with just enough combat that you get the gist, or complete playthroughs. And many of my friends who just don't play video games but want to experience God of War, they just watched it. They actually just watched it. And John Statz, who we were talking about, he loves it. He's like, because he doesn't really play video games anymore, he just watches video games. And he's like, yeah, it's the best of both worlds. I got all the cutscenes. I got the whole story. It's like 8 hours long. It's long. And he's like, so I got it and I didn't have to play anything. So you can do that too. And because these games are so short, to go through all the core story of God of War 1, it's probably like an hour. It's not that long, It's not that long. I do that with the Yakuza games. Not Yakuza, the
Yakuza?
Yakuza games, yeah. Because the Yakuza games I love them, but I actually prefer them. I prefer the story than the gameplay. So I'm like, I'll just watch it. I don't need to play the game. They're all the same. Kind of get it after a while. Although Like a Dragon, oh my god, that game is fantastic. That's on sale, by the way. That one, I love that game. And that game,
I have that one too.
You don't have to play the others because that's a standalone. It's a new.
Yeah, that's a different character.
That's a different character.
It was a very specific guy who his family got screwed over or something. He's coming out of jail.
I finished it in like 2 weeks. I couldn't believe how much fun I was having. I loved it. And the best part is that he loves Dragon Quest, although they call it something different in the game. So he's picturing all the fights like Dragon Quest fights. So even though it's turn-based combat, it's because in his mind that's how they are. Like, they explain it, and it's just hokey enough. And I will tell you, I don't think anyone does better storytelling than those crazy Japanese JRPGs, because they have like 5 endings too. Like, whenever you get to the end, so many Western games you'll play and the ending will be like 5 minutes long and you're done. You're like, that's it. But then you play a JRPG and there'll be like 5 hours of endings of like, like double sequel, triple endings. And you're like, there you go. That was worth it. The ending was so good. So I would recommend those Yeah, but yeah, you know what? And if you describing what you like about open world, I cannot emphasize enough to play Elden Ring, because Elden Ring has probably the best open world I've ever
But
seen.
what did I say that I liked it, open world?
Is that you like to go somewhere and find something and have it reward you, as opposed to like, oh, there's like a cliff up there. Let me go spend 10 minutes. In Elden Ring, if you spend 10 minutes, you'll find something. And there'll usually be something good. And you'll be like, I was playing the game maybe for 50 hours. And it was like the starting area. And whenever I got to the starting area, I was always like going left. And then I'm like, because to the right, it was like nothing. And it just was like, a field. And I was like, okay. And then for whatever reason, like 50 hours in, I went right. And then I looked, and then there was like a small area. I was like, oh my God, I totally missed. Like, this has been next to me for 50 hours, and I never saw it. And there was this whole area, and it doesn't show it on the map. So I was like, oh my God. And it stuck with me, because I was like, it's like finding like a door in your house and you never open it. And then you open up the door and it leads to like a basement. And you're like, what the hell? Like, this has been here the whole time. I didn't even know it's here. That's what it's like playing Elden Ring. It's really fascinating. It's very well done. The other thing is the map is only as big as what you've explored. So my friend Seth, the guy who I play with, he was like 20 hours in. He's like, I think I know where it's going. But what happens is that as you explore, the map keeps getting bigger and bigger and smaller. So the map dynamically scales to the size that you've explored. So he then, like 200 hours in, I'm like, remember 20 hours in, you thought you were almost done with the game? He goes, oh my God, I'm going to kill you, Steve. it's like, this map never ends. I was like, I know. And I've never seen that in a game before, because everyone always has like, the map's like this big, and then they show the little area you explored, so we have all that left. But Elden Ring, just something as simple as that, genius design, so you never know how big the game is going to get, and it keeps. So
there's
going.
a super chat that said thoughts about Chrono Trigger in open world, and are they making an open world Chrono Trigger?
No, but I absolutely there's Chrono Trigger.
I don't understand the question, because I am a major Chrono Trigger player. I played it a lot. I really like it, and
I like
it's
Chrono
not open
Cross.
World.
I actually like Chrono Cross more than Chrono Trigger.
I definitely do not. Chrono Cross was a solid RPG, but it is one of the worst sequels ever made.
What? Oh, I like the fact
it is a solid RPG as a game. If it was called like Bono Cross, and it did not try to shoehorn in that all of your characters are dead, killed by kind of boring and uninteresting villains from the new game in the back stages, and the weird things that they added at the end that didn't make any sense and were not like well defined, then that would be one thing. Whereas
I played them backwards, by the way.
Then that's probably why you like it better.
No, I played Chrono Cross first, then Chrono Trigger. So.
Because Chrono Cross is a solid game if you just play Chrono Cross.
Well, also at the time,
whereas Radical Dreamers, the 1996,
right?
Like the visual novel adventure game that was sort of the Chrono Trigger sequel, had more directly sequely elements, and a lot of that got adapted into Chrono Cross. But it feels like Radical Dreamers may have had things done more directly that felt a little bit more like a sequel, whereas Chrono Cross kind of shoehorned in some of the Radical Dreamers elements with no real explanation until suddenly it hits and is not very satisfying for a Chrono Trigger sequel. Great RPG, terrible sequel. Yeah, I want to make that clear.
Yeah, I played them backwards, and I liked it because I liked the magic system. I liked the condition-based system, and I liked there was like 200 characters, and that you can play them all. That was great, and each character had their own way of talking, which was fun. And you get to play the bad guy. Any game where you get to play the bad guy in part of the game always goes.
You're not really playing the bad guy though, but I don't want to give spoilers.
I
don't want to give too many spoilers by going into great details about it. Okay, fine. You're playing yourself, who's been projected into the body of the bad guy.
Yes, but it's fun that you get to play the bad guy. Any game that does that, in my opinion, it's because it's so hard to do it well and organically in a video game. or any medium really.
So Tabletop Worms is saying Chrono Trigger was open world once you could travel between timelines. So I say it's not, and I want to make a distinction. I want to make a distinction between railroad sandbox style games and open world or not. Because Chrono Trigger is definitely not open world in the sense that you can go to a bunch of different locations, but many of the dungeons that are there are just not accessible until the right time because various story-based blocks block you off. And also, even when you can get into them, they're all kind of scripted areas that are fairly linear areas that you progress through. And you can sort of do the kind of exploration that, for me, I always find is rewarding. And I never find that I spend tons of hours doing nothing because it's like, okay, you can think to look behind this thing, and I always think to look behind it, but the most that's going to take you is a few minutes. In open world, it's seamless, and you can just go anywhere, and because you can go anywhere, if there's not a mechanism to help you know that you found everything or where things are, theoretically, you could keep searching forever because you might have missed something. And when you're a completionist like me, that can cause you some issues. So I want to draw a distinction. I don't know if that's the official definition of open world or not, but for me, it has to be continuous and without really screen transitions, or if there are, the areas have to be very wide before you get to a screen transition. And you can just kind of go anywhere and get up to anything. It has to be big, I guess. Like I wouldn't call something open world if it was so small that you get one from one side to the other in a couple of minutes, even if you could theoretically go across all of it.
All right, I'm going to end with this. Chrono Trigger is fine, but I prefer a much better time travel story. Day of the Tentacle. Oh my God.
Day of the Tentacle is funny, and it's a good point and click, but I think Chrono Trigger is more fun than Day of the Tentacle. It's like comparing apples to oranges, really.
I love the Day of the Tentacle, but Day of the Tentacle is just, it's just fun. Well, they both came out around the same time, and they both were goofy. They both have time travel elements. But that was back when LucasArts was coming out with like A+++ adventure games. And Day of the Tentacle
felt to me like Day of the Tentacle is much older, but I guess it is only 2 years older.
It's only 2 years.
But
I know.
When I was young, 2 years was a lot of years.
I know. They're basically around the same time. But Day of the Tentacle, because I love those games. I love games where you like, oh, you go in the past and you put this thing here, and then you go in the future and then you find the thing that you put there, like those games are great. And I do like that everyone's like when you went back to I mean, I haven't played it in like 27 years or something, but when you went back and
you go back to so the 3 time periods are staying in the present, going to the future that's ruled by tentacles, which awesome. Like the girl in your group goes there,
and then you go back to like George Washington.
The guy whose name is like Hoagie or something like that goes back in time to Revolutionary.
That was my favorite
period
because they all dress like that. It's very funny. I also like funny, goofy games like that, as you probably know. Like I just like the humor of it. It was a fun game. It also, at the time, blew my mind. I think that's the thing, is that time travel games like that didn't really exist. And that type of game of time travel, like, blew my mind when I was a kid. Like, I was like, oh my God, this thing is amazing. And then Chrono Trigger came out, and it was good. I do have the remastered Day of the Tentacle. That is a game that I don't know holds up. That's the problem with it, because I played it again, and I have the remastered. It was so slow. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot these
points. I played the remastered Day of the Tentacle too. It's pretty slow.
It's really slow.
And I've replayed Chrono Trigger and Day of the Tentacle both fairly recently, and Chrono Trigger holds up better.
Oh, Chrono Trigger, I actually have it on my iPhone, and I was playing it recently. It definitely holds up. It's much better. Of the two, like, that one is very fun. It's still fun. Of the two, that one is definitely the better.
So you admit that Chrono Trigger is better?
In today's, with my eyes of today, but keep in mind, I played Day of the Tentacle before I played Chrono Trigger.
Oh, of course.
So
it came out sooner.
So that does go into, that's like, if you ever watch people who watch like movies out of order, you know, like they watch like Empire before Star Wars, and then it just messes, you know, like most people watch it in quote the correct order, the order they came out with, but whenever you watch things in the wrong order, it just messes you up. Keep in
No, I
mind,
understand. That's why I want to play God of War in the right order.
Oh yeah, I can see that. But as I said, God of War 1, I 100% agree. God of War 2, 3, first of all, they're boring. God of War 2 is okay. God of War 3 was so boring. It just was...
If they're only like 8 or 9 hours, it's not that much of a commitment if the game series is very good overall. But if the game is actually literally boring and bad, 8 hours it can be a problem. That is true.
I don't know why. Let's see how many there are. But God of War, second. That thing is beyond. It's not even a masterpiece. It's beyond a masterpiece. Let's see how many there were, and then we'll go. There was a lot. God of War, God of War 2, God of War Betrayer, God of War Chains of Olympus, God of War Collection, God of War 3, God of War Ghosts of Sparta, God of War Origins Collection, God of War Saga, God of War Ascension, God of War 3 Remastered, God of War A Call from the Wilds, and then God of War. Then God of War Ragnarok. So there you go. And God
there you go.
War,
That's a lot of wars.
So of those, God of War, which came out March 22nd, 2025, that one's great because that one, yeah, you are tasked by Athena to find Pandora's box. It's really cool. You hang out with a lot of the older gods. It's very, very well done. The fighting is excellent. Oh right, God of War 2, you're now gonna find the Sisters of Fate and mess up Fate. And then God of War 3 is now you're going after the Titans. It's like all right. That was a little much. I was like, come on, really? And like one of the fights, although it looks awesome, is that it's a Titan and you are like climbing his finger. Like that's how big they are. The fight is like the size of the Empire State Building, and you're climbing up the fingers to go kill them. And you're
it's like Shihan from Elemental Storm climbing up on things.
Yeah, but this is like to the point of really, and like it's so scripted like you could tell and then this happens a lot, like as you climb up you fall constantly, and then you got to go back and climb up again, and after your fifth or 10th time falling, you're like, all right, this doesn't feel it's like it's supposed to be this amazing and dynamic, like exciting, and it feels like the game is waiting for you, you know? It's like, would you get up here already so we can continue the video game? And I'm like, all right, this doesn't really feel as epic as it should. It feels like I'm kind of in a scripted cutscene. You know what I mean? So
that's fair. That's definitely fair.
Yeah, that's what kind of took me out of it. Because that was it was supposed to be epic, but it's not. As opposed to like when you're in a boss battle, and if you die, and then you got to start the boss battle over, and that's fine. I get that because it's still exciting from the beginning to the end. But here it was like climbing a Titan to kill it, and literally spending 20 minutes getting to his head, and that was the fight. And I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I'm literally like figuring out navigation. I'm like, I'm not doing it. This is not fun. This is not exciting. So whatever.
That's fair.
Yeah. So, but
all right.
I would say check those out, and I'm gonna check out. I'm gonna still be playing my my Red Dead RDR2 is what we call it in the biz.
There you go, in the biz.
If you're cool with me.
I guess if that's it, then until next time, everyone. If you want to battle the zoo, you have to roll for combat.
Do you really? I guess
no, but you told me to say it, so I said it.
There you go. Bye.